I try to put myself in other shoes, and I think, okay, if there's a homeless person, probably drug addicted, probably alcohol addicted, it's hard for them to just pick up and say, I'm going to start training. Or it's hard for anyone to pick them up off the street and say, let's start training, or let's start educating you skills.
All right, guys. Today I have with me here Eddie Galvan. I've known Eddie for quite a while now, and we work together. I'm not even going to go into details, Eddie. Just a little backstory, man. How do we meet? How do we meet at first?
So first of all, thanks for having me, man. I've been super excited about this. The first two episodes I've seen, they've been great. Clearly, I mean, I'm not as accomplished as these other guys you've had on, but I do think I have some interesting stuff to share.
Yeah.
As far as us meeting, we both interned at Bird Arena at RGVFC. It was a good time, man. You really made that experience a lot better. So I'm glad to have met you, and I know we have some big plans for the future. So
yeah,
excited for that.
So I'm happy to have you on here because we both, interned together. We saw things, that we worked on together. We spent a lot of time together. We both live in the same area, which is the Rio Grande Valley, and we're both entrepreneurs. So, Eddie, I want to know, what has been your struggle with entrepreneurship? What have you learned so far, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I've done a couple of things. I wouldn't go as far as calling myself an entrepreneur, especially not comparing myself to you. I know you've done a lot. But I do have a couple ideas for some apps that I'm working on. Right now, it's just a lot of grinding it out at the first steps of the process. But as far as struggles, I think for me, it's been a lot of learning.
Yeah.
I come from two immigrant parents. They both came from Mexico, so they help me as much as they can. But there's just some things that you have to learn on your own, especially with school, especially with. I mean, it's a different country. It's a different way of living, and entrepreneurship. It's a lot of learning. Whether you've been here your whole life, whether you have people to teach you, it's just a lot of learning. So. Mainly that. It's a little bit of a learning curve, and I mean, I've had some great people around me to help, so you included.
I appreciate that. Those are really nice, kind words. And when you were talking, you mentioned, how your parents are immigrants and all that. Eddie, I want to know, right now, one of the things that we need to be talking about as young people or as the youth is social issues that are going on in our communities or in places around us. What is your stance, or what do you think about immigration and the current immigration policies that we're seeing play out right now?
Loaded question. Definitely, it's a tough subject, but I actually, ironically, I'm here to talk a little bit of UBI, a little bit of politics, like we talked about coming into the episode. But I actually hate politics. Ironically, I hate it so much, and I hate talking about it, and But the thing that draws me in is I genuinely have a deep care for people, a deep care for humanity. So it pains me on the immigration topic. It pains me to see, especially Hispanic people similar to me, that don't have the fortune of being here, that don't have the fortune of treated properly, a good life, stuff like that. So As far as a stance, I wouldn't know how to answer that question. Like I said, I hate politics, but I think there's just a right way to treat people.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to say like, hey, these people don't deserve this, these people deserve this. Like, we're not the ones to judge that. I feel people's work, people's character speaks for itself, and I mean, good people deserve good things. In my opinion, it's hard to really. It's a loaded question for me. You know.
Yeah, and talking about hating politics, Eddie. One thing that is kind of like showing, or it's very dominant in the youth these days, is that we don't want to talk about politics. We don't like the idea of politics because people before us have made politics look so nasty and have made it unrelatable to us the youth. And so I mean, I get you when you say you don't like politics, but on the other hand, what do you think about politics being a means of livelihood that affect us directly? So if, let's say, we have people in office who are making decisions, and we'll be talking about the UBI very soon. We have people in office who are making decisions, and it's affecting us as young people. Do you think that we need to be able to have an opinion and call out some of these decisions, or you think we need to relax and stay back and say you got it?
No, you see, as much as I'd love to relax, stay back. I mean, I'm a sports guy. I like keeping politics out of sports, my sports, and nothing else. But unfortunately, we just don't live in a time where we can take a backseat to any of this. More than having a stance or more than caring about politics, I think we need to take action. Do the little things we can do. I mean, maybe you don't have to get directly involved in politics, but you have to have an opinion. You have to stand up for people and stand up for what's right. Stand up for humanity. That's really my thing overall. Like I said, if I could, I wouldn't get involved. I hate the whole idea of politics, the back and forth. It's really two sides arguing and wasting time. Meanwhile, nothing happens and people suffer. Like you said, we were affected directly. Not only us. I mean, relatively speaking, I think you and I have. We're in a better position than most. I mean, we go through our hardships, but there's people that have it way worse than us, and that just doesn't sit right with me. So, as much as I'd like to take a back seat, it feels wrong. It feels wrong,
Yeah.
morally wrong. In my conscience, I can't stomach that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about policies and talking about decisions that affect us. You first mentioned UBI to me. I had no idea what UBI is. I've heard it. People talking about it. And UBI is Universal Basic Income. Eddie, I want you
Yeah.
to explain the background and the idea behind UBI, because I do have some, concerns, and I've done a lot of reading also, and I've come to see that there's a way to go around it and make it, very sustainable, where we can all live and have very good life with such a system. So talk to me about UBI and what it is.
Of course. So I'll tell you a little bit of background on how I kind of got introduced to UBI,
Mhm.
and my initial concerns. I'm sure some of your initial concerns. It's usually the same ones. It's well, it'll make people lazy, or stuff like that, you know. But initially, I I I became aware of the idea of UBI, or a guaranteed income, through Andrew Yang, a presidential candidate, ex-presidential candidate, and I think it's been a couple of years now since I've kind of heard the term, and I got really into it. I mean, I don't know what it was. It was the way he was talking about. At first, it was he would say a lot, not left, not right, but forward, and I got into that. I could buy into that because a lot of times it's a lot of back and forth, and nothing gets done. And this guy's looking for solutions. He's very solution oriented. So UBI is basically a guaranteed income, a floor, where every American citizen gets a number, let's call it $1,000 a month, unconditionally, regardless of sexual orientation, age, uh, religious affiliation, anything, you get money and it's guaranteed. So what it aims to do is provide a basic floor. And Andrew Yang introduced it as $1,000 a month because the poverty line is somewhere right under $12,000 a year. That's the official poverty line. So it would literally eradicate poverty. And it's not meant to promote like disincentivize working or anything like that. It's literally meeting people's basic needs. So that's basically, in the gist of it, UBI.
Yeah. So the main idea is meeting people's basic needs and eradicating poverty. I'm a huge fan of eradicating poverty, and I think that we definitely need ways and means to get rid of poverty. Do you think there is no other way other than the UBI to eliminate poverty other than handing people $1,000 a month just for an income, for doing nothing?
It's interesting you say for doing nothing. I have a better way of phrasing that.
Okay.
It's UBI isn't money for people to do nothing. It's money for people to do anything. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Because I don't know if you're aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
So first, the bottom of the pyramid, the first needs you look to meet are physiological.
Yeah.
Then it's safety. So if you're constantly in survival mode, you can't really do anything. You're thinking, where's my next meal coming from? Where am I gonna live? Stuff like that. And it's hard, especially for someone like you, someone like me, very creative people, very people that want to innovate, people that want to start their own business, stuff like that. It's impossible. It's really impossible, and especially with such a low minimum wage, it's not even livable. Stuff like that. It's almost impossible to do nothing. And even then, $12,000 a year is barely enough to live almost anywhere in the country. So it's not really to do nothing. It's really, for me, it's to do anything. As far as your first question, is there other ways? I think there's other ways, but I think UBI is the most effective way. I mean, how do you, like, if you were, I put in terms of like being a kid, and you tell a kid, like, how do you make this people not have money? Well, you give them money. You know, like, it's really, like, it's really, I think we tend to overcomplicate things, and we tend to put conditions on a lot of things, and use negatively biased stereotypes to, like, hey, these people will do nothing. Like, when tests show and data shows that it's completely the opposite. I mean, you meet people's lower needs, they have a chance to find love, to self-actualize, the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, I mean, there is other ways, but I mean, you tell me. It's been 200 some years in this country, and we're as worse as ever. We're the richest we've ever been. I think the richest civilization in the history of humanity. Yet we have such a high poverty rate and people living in such terrible conditions. You know.
I mean, in talking about that, is there no way where we can innovate in having, creating as many jobs as possible for these people who are living off the streets, or these people who are or basically just restructuring our education system. We're giving people skills other than just, like, teaching people to just go be in the office and do nothing, but, like, having an alternative educational system where people can acquire skills instead of just sitting down and learning something that you probably wouldn't use.
And I love that, but I think all of that goes hand in hand with the UBI. But I think, like I mentioned before, UBI is that floor to stand on. If you can't, I mean, I try to put myself in other shoes, and I think, okay, if there's a homeless person, probably drug addicted, probably alcohol addicted, it's hard for them to just pick up and say, I'm going to start training. Or it's hard for anyone to pick them up off the street and say, let's start training. or let's start educating you skills. Or I mean, even someone who works like an office job, like you said, work that isn't necessarily meaningful for some people. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's not meaningful, but there's a lot of people that dread going into work, you know? So UBI kind of gives you that safety blanket of saying, you know what, maybe I can take a couple weeks off from work to start working on my idea, or a couple weeks off or a month or whatever to train and gain skills to be in the jobs I want to be in, or to become an entrepreneur. I mean, that little extra cash, you know, as good as anyone, goes a long way, especially in early stages of a startup. So, I mean, yes, education is probably one of my number two, if not number three, on the priorities of my, like, the political, I guess, agenda, if you want to call it that. But I think it needs to start with people's basic needs being met, because it's hard to think about anything else when you don't have a place to live, when you don't have food on the table, and when your life is literally survival mode. You think survive first and anything else. So, I mean, yeah, education is important, but we need to provide a floor for people to stand on.
Yeah, I kind of like, listening to that kind of, it does make sense. The thing is, people or lawmakers, when they're drafting stuff like that, need to present it in a way that maybe the right doesn't see it as, oh, you're giving people free checks, or you're like, you need to present your argument in a formidable way, or in a way that people can relate to. I think most often people see it as, giving handouts and stuff like that. And people even talk about social security checks and say that, it's handouts and government handouts and this and that, putting stereotypes on people. So wanting to have a UBI, kind of increases that stereotype as well, for the left wanting handouts.
Yeah. It's important you say that. And I tend to stay away from left and right. I actually don't consider myself either Democrat or Republican. I'm very independent. I'm very down the middle. Like I said, I care about humanity. I care about people's well-being. That is number one for me. But I mean, I to your point, I do see how you say, well, the right can see it as handouts and make people lazy, stuff like that. A counterpoint to that would be the idea of UBI is not new. Actually, I think Richard Nixon introduced it, and it passed in the House. It passed in Congress. Senate rejected it actually because they wanted a higher number. It's really ironic. They wanted a bigger UBI. That's why it never passed. And like a lot of things in our legislative system, it's gridlock. It's policy gridlock all the time. But I mean, it's crazy to think about. In the 70s, we almost had a UBI.
Yeah.
We shut it down because we wanted a higher number. But as far as phrasing it to the right, it's not a new idea. An economist, Milton Friedman, I don't know if you're aware of who he presented it, or he talked about it, and he actually mentioned every way it would be better for the economy. And we know the right side kind of tends to think more in terms of the economy, money, what's going to generate money. And to put it in very simple terms, you give a person $1,000, regardless of what they spend it on, it stimulates the economy. You get me?
Yeah.
Even
it
if
goes back.
Oh, yeah, they're going to spend it on. And you want to talk inflation? Well, inflation usually comes from the printing of new money. The UBI is all from money that's already in circulation. So you haven't asked me, but this is usually one of the most frequently asked questions. How would we pay for UBI?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, we'll wait for that then. But as far as presenting it to the right, it would be really beneficial to the economy. I mean, right now, if you look at it, and I really try to simplify things and look at things without like a bias politically or a bias socially or anything. But people can't spend money. If there's people living in poverty and they can't spend money, which is over 50% of the nation, I mean, the big four tech companies and their owners have more money combined than 50% of the United States population. I mean, you tell me, if they can't spend money, well, the economy is dying, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of politicians use GDP as an index. I think that's outdated because GDP and unemployment rates are outdated because they don't look at one, the quality of jobs. It's one thing to say we're at 98% employment, but if people are working shitty jobs they don't want to do, and that aren't paying well, and that are barely enough to survive, are we really accomplishing anything by having a almost non-existent unemployment rate? I think we should focus more on quality of work, the meaningfulness of work, and the conditions that people are actually living in.
So then comes the question: how do we pay for it?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few ways, and it's also based on some assumptions. But I think primarily a value-added tax would be placed on corporations. I'm pretty anti big business, at least the way it's gotten to now. I think morally, no one should need that amount of money, and I think it's inhumane that it's not coming back. And the people that build it, not only with their work, with their spending power, with like we buy into a lot of companies, whatever, like we consume them, we don't see any of it. So a way for us to see that would be a value added tax. So what this is you're taxing higher up along the supply chain. So you're not only taxing on the end good, you're taxing on different parts of the supply chain. For example, software, AI, automation, any robotics you use. I mean, you need technology because, as we know, automation is destroying jobs, and it's not is going to destroy jobs. It's is destroying jobs currently, and it's putting a lot of people out of work. And I mean, I think personally, if we don't do anything about it, especially in the form of a UBI, we're going to be in a full-blown crisis, full-blown depression. So people out of work due to automation. How do you get people's? How do you make corporations pay their fair share? You tax the software that they're using to lay off people, to make their business more efficient, leaner. You tax that. You tax different parts of the supply chain, and you see it reflected into a UBI. Another thing is, I'm sorry.
Real quick, and this is you're taxing the big corporations and not the startups or small businesses that are coming up.
That's tricky. I mean, like I said, I'm in no way an economist, no way a professional. I simply educate myself, and I've become sort of obsessed with the topic because I see its potential.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, a heavier tax would be levied on bigger corporations. And it's not, I mean, it's not something personal or direct. It's simply you're automating away jobs, and by that you're saying these robots have more value than you. So my thing is, well, no, I mean, people first. You tax what they're using to make their business leaner, and it goes back into the people. And another way, I think, to pay for it, that is, like I said, based on an assumption, but we'd see it in less incarceration, less hospitalization, less rehabbing, less, typical things that we spend so much money on. I mean, defunding the police a little. I love the police. I think they do a great job in my experience, but I also see they're not properly trained, and I also see that it has been very hard on people. I mean, I can't understand it. I've never had a personal experience, but I empathize for everyone that does, and I see that it's unjust and it's not right. So I say a UBI would reduce crime rate, would reduce hospitalization rate, because crime is born out of necessity. Crime. I mean, I put it in an example like this. We see a black community in Baltimore, something like that, and kids, if you see no opportunity, if there's no money, if you're surviving, it's easier for you to resort to gang life, to resort to crime. It's the, you see it as the only way.
Yeah.
With UBI, there's opportunity that says, you know what, maybe I can afford college. Maybe, I mean, it's such a trickle up effect rather than a trickle down, trickle down mix. It's a trickle up. The money starts growing from the bottom up. And it would in turn reduce a lot of crime because it provides opportunity. So we'd see a lot less need for so many police officers. We'd be able to better train them. Hospitalization rate would go down, like I said. It would be a better society, and that money we save would go into the UBI. I mean, to make up for the marginal costs, whatever. But primarily, it would be the value added tax.
As people who have a humanity to think for themselves, we're made to think that you're either at the right or you're either at the left. I have my friends calling me a leftist, and I have people on the left calling me that I'm more conservative, and I'm like, I'm okay with that. It shows that I have a central point of view and I can think for myself. So when people are saying this, I'm able to think and say that, this is what I believe and this is how it relates to my values. So even with what you're saying with the UBI and everything, I kind of, at first when we had conversations about it, I was kind of, taken aback by it. Yeah. But, you kept on sending me articles and eventually I saw that even MLK, advocated for UBI. So, it's pretty interesting that, listening to both sides and understanding what the central point of view is, you can come together and form and make an informed decision to make people's lives better. And I really, really love it that you've had the opportunity to talk to me about some of these stuff. And before I end, everything, Eddie, I always ask my guests to just give us some words of inspiration, whether to people of your age or your peers, or just people out there. There's people who are having a difficult time. There's people who are going to school today, who are starting school today. What are some words you can say to us?
I mean, a few things I would say. I'd say really prioritize your mental health, and it's something so important, something that I've always kind of ignored, I guess. Coming from like a Hispanic household, it's not really like the and we're all boys, by the way, so it's not really the easiest topic to be like, like mental health. It sounds kind of goofy for some people at first, but I think it's 100% so important. If your mind's right, you can kind of guide everything else where it needs to go. And I think, going off of kind of what you said, some words of inspiration is really take the time to find what your values are, what you believe in, and how you feel what you feel humanity should look like, and how you feel others should be treated. So don't be so quick, especially right now that everything's so politicized, so polarized. Don't be so quick to say, I'm right, like right side, right side. I'm left side, left side. You don't have to agree with everything they say. Mm-hmm. You can make your own decisions based off, one, like your intuition, what feels right to you, and two, like what you hear. Like, educate yourself. I think more than anything is really take time to learn about things you care about things you don't care about, everything. I mean, that, and I would send a message of empathy. Really be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. I think that's 100% important and a very important part of maturing. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, treat others the way you want to be treated. Something you wouldn't like, don't do it to someone else. And I want to say real quick, just to end this, if anyone wants to talk UBI, ask me questions, anything. I'd be more than happy to share some articles, some writing, some whatever, some videos. Um, everyone should give this a read. I had to plug in
Wow.
at least once. Yeah, it's a great book. I mean, anyone. I don't know if you're gonna like tag me in any of this, but anyone who
Absolutely.
wants to reach out, reach out. It's UBI. UBI is really a message for humanity moving forward. It's taking care of those whose jobs are going to be lost. It's taking care of the black community. I mean, like you said, MLK, during his last year of his life, was actually realized, you know what, UBI is what we need. It's giving people a floor to stand on, giving them an opportunity to do meaningful work. It's not giving them an opportunity and then do nothing. So DMs are open. Reach out, and I'll be happy to talk or just send some info your way.
Perfect. Eddie, absolutely. Eddie, what I'll do is I'll put your information down there, so people can reach you and stuff like that. I personally would love to read the book you showed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm doing a lot of reading, every morning, waking up, making sure I read something just to, help educate myself in a lot of issues. And so I'll definitely love to read that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, buddy, come pick it up.
All right, good. All right, Eddie, thank you so much for being on here. And it was really, really fun talking to you.
I appreciate it, man. Whenever you need a guest, plug me.
Absolutely. You most likely will be seeing Eddie more often. I would love to have you as a co-host
Dude,
because we do have a really awesome stuff.
is that the move, bro?
That's the move.
That's the move, bro. Nah, bro. I mean, I'd be down. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Appreciate you, bro.